Hi everyone, my name is Anthony Cummins and welcome to this video. Right, today I want to talk to you about ninja gardeners. Now, have you ever seen a documentary where they said, oh, the ninja used to act as gardeners in the shogun's castle as spies so that they could see what was going on, yeah? We all remember this, we've seen it a million times in different documentaries, but did you know it's absolutely fake? It never happened. The idea of these gardeners were in the ninja, in the shogun's palace and all that, just isn't true. What they are talking about is something called Oniwaban, yeah? Oniwaban. So what actually were they? Well, I'm obviously promoting the new book, which is Samurai and Ninja, and this is the real story behind the Japanese warrior myth that shatters the Bushido mystique. Now, if you go to page 208, I've give you a couple of pages here on the Oniwaban. Now, this is where the gardener myth starts from. This is a very misunderstood concept. So what I'm going to do is take you through them and tell you exactly what they were. So the aim of this video is to replace the fake idea, or if you've seen it in the past anywhere, the idea that these ninja are gardeners and they sit gardening things and looking and watching in the shogun's palace. I don't know what they'd be spying on, to be honest. I have no idea why this came about, this fake idea, because they'd be spying on what the people having lunch, the ladies of the court. There are no enemies there. They're only, the shogun. You'd probably overhear conversations of women talking about makeup or whatever, or, them talking about which concubine they wanted to get rid of and, that type of thing. But my point is it's a totally fake image. So what's the real image? Right. In 1716, the Kishu Tokugawa clan. Now, if for those who follow me on Natori, that's very important. Kishu Tokugawa is where Natori was. But Natori died in 1708. So by 1716, the shogun had died and he had no male heirs surviving to give the shogunate to. But the Tokugawa had obviously they planned for this. So they had 3 other houses based on Tokugawa Ieyasu's son, and these 3 were there in case this happened, so they could supply a male heir. And in this case, it was the man from Kishu. So in 1716, the new shogun from Kishu, up he came, travelled to Edo, started to become the lord of the shogun of all Japan. So he brought with him his own people. Of course, he brings his own retainers, his own samurai. He wants to make sure he is safe. So he devises a new system. And what he does is he uses the gunpowder handlers. Now, I can't be 100% certain, but we think the gunpowder handlers were actually the kokemono, those from Koka. So you've got people who were kokemono. They probably kokemono. They become the gunpowder experts after the wars have finished, so their job is to check all the cannons, the fire rockets and everything for Kishu Tokugawa. Then the Kishu Tokugawa lord said, come on, be the shogun, you're the highest remaining male member. So they take him. He says, come with me, guys, come with me. All his samurai come, but he changes the kokemono, these gunpowder handlers, he changes their name to the Oniwaban. And what he does is he installs them as guards around the palace. Now, if you've ever been to Tokyo, you can go there to this day and you can see the area. And it's the Emperor's Palace in Tokyo. Now, originally it was the Shogun's castle, but now it's the Emperor's Palace. So if you go to Tokyo, go to Tokyo Station on the Yamanote line. If you get off and you walk towards the castle, you can go across the bridge, you can visit all these places. The reason I'm saying this is at the lower end, the Igamono, the men from Iga, and 3 other divisions would guard the bottom area of the castle. They didn't guard all of it, they guarded the outer wall and the main gates. One of the gates was the Hanzomon, the Hattori Hanzo's gate. Now, so you've got to imagine the Igamono are there with other people looking after them. But at the top of the hill, at the top of the castle, is another compound with gates locked. Everything is very, very maintained and, access is very restricted. and that is where the Oniwaban were. And the Oniwaban were half samurai, these ex-gunpowder, which fits in totally with history, with our understanding of the ninja. They were actually ex-Kokomono, probably, but we know at least they were gunpowder handlers, and they came under the, probably Doshin, they came under the half samurai section. So they didn't dress as gardeners, they wore black tops with a single katana, not a daisho, the double, and they would protect the gateways, they would march around the compound, and they would check to make sure that nobody was infiltrating, everybody was in the right place. So when work needed to happen, the shogun would leave the area, and the Oniwaban would go out and they would hire the correct carpenter, they would, you know, get the right people. Obviously this was all done with other divisions within the castle, but they would double check everything. They would oversee all the work being done. Nobody would be allowed to nobody would be left on their own. If new tatami mats were needed, the Oniwaban were there checking everything. They would make sure all the workmen had left. They'd make sure all the workmen had not stolen anything. That was their job. So what's interesting is they actually looked after the gardeners. So this idea that they were gardener ninjas is totally rubbish. Their job was to check the gardeners who came in and then check them out again. And at night they would lock the door. Now in Japanese society there are two types of people. Those, and they've got special names, they're here written here. Those who are allowed an audience with the Lord, and those who are not allowed an audience with the Lord. So that means if the Lord comes out of into the garden, half the people have to leave because they are not allowed to see his presence. Obviously we're in very bureaucratic times here, and they're not allowed to see his presence. So the Oniwaban are not actually of that level at this point. They could see their original lord in Kishu, but now they don't have the level to see the shogun, but their lord has now become the shogun. So from a political point of view, or from a social point of view, this is like, ooh, we've got a bit of a problem here. They're not technically allowed to see him, so they're given the title of Igamono. This doesn't mean they're from Iga, they're actually from Kishu. So they're given the title of Igamono simply because of the social hierarchy. The Igamono are there to bodyguard the Lord and to keep him safe. So the Igamono have absolutely every right to stand by the Lord and make sure he's okay. So they give the people from Kishu, this new founded system, the title of Igamono, which means they can stay in the garden when the Lord's there. So you have to imagine it. At the bottom of the hill, you've got the Igamono protecting, you know, the Igamono from Iga, protecting the outer ring with a few other divisions. These are called ban divisions, like Oniwaban, the guards. So you have the Igamono at the bottom, you go up the hill, there's another set of gates, and you have the Oniwaban outside waiting. Who are you? What do you want? You know, you've got the correct passes. They'll open the door for you and come in. At night, the Oniwaban lock the door and they make sure they go on rotation of guard duty. That's what they do inside the castle. But what they also do is go into Edo and they check all the people who are about to be hired. So if somebody goes for a job as a martial arts instructor to some of the people, not the Lord necessarily, but inside the castle, anybody who's going to work inside the castle as a cook, a chef, a martial arts instructor, anything, then the Oniwaban would go out and they would double check their background, make sure they're not spies, make sure who they say they are, and all those type of things. Now, in addition to this, the Oniwaban were sent on secret missions, so they needed to have access to the Lord. Normally, the Lord would give the mission to a counsellor, and the counsellor would give the mission to the Oniwaban. What you've got is then the Oniwaban would go off on a mission to another province. He'd go in disguise, he would become a proper spy, and he would go out and it says they normally went out in pairs, and they would go out and they would check the situation. They would go to Kyoto, they would go to Osaka, and they would come back and report their findings. Now what we do know is they actually had a deal with an express messenger service. So the express messenger service would go off to Kyoto and the Oniwaban would join them as their group in disguise, and they then had a safe house in Kyoto and Osaka. So the Oniwaban would go to the safe house, and there was a man hired specifically to look after the safe house and check as their contact and be a socialite in Kyoto circles, so that he could introduce them into the correct places. They would then get their messages sorted, they would get the spying done, and they would come all the way back to Tokyo and report to the shogun about what was happening in Kyoto and what was happening in Osaka. Right, so where were we? So you've got these guys come back. They would come back and they would report back to the Lord. Now, usually they would write this report down. It would be double checked and it would be then read to the Lord or given to the Lord. And the Oniwaban themselves would not discuss it with the Lord directly. But that was only a few members. Not every one of the Oniwaban did that. Mostly they protected the inner compounds, looked at women having picnics, look at high aristocrats, you know, doing their faces and things like that. And people saying, oh, beautiful flowers, or overhearing political conversations. But what we do know is that these guys were from Kishu and it was hereditary. They couldn't be employed outside of Kishu families. So Kishu families were doing it. And as the families dwindled and died off, it was like the second son would take it. Because remember, always Japanese families are based on the first son. So they would do second son would re-establish the family and things like that. But it was always Kishu and they had their own secret techniques, if you will, or their own secret things. Of course, those who are in the know will then be saying, is it Natori? Did they have access to the Shoninki? And when I first published the Shoninki, I actually said in the introduction, we don't know whether the Oniwaban had access, we just know they were around the same time. But I now think, I genuinely think, guys, that the Oniwaban had no access to the Shoninki or the Natori scrolls, even though they were from the same building originally. You would get the Kogamono or the gunpowder handlers around the same area, and then you would get the people probably doing Natori in the same area. I don't think they crossed over. There's no evidence to support it, and there actually is more evidence against it. So I would say the Oniwaban had different techniques to Natori Ryu, or at least were from a different thing, even though they were probably the same people brushing up against each other in the same buildings. They did divide. I don't think they actually were part of the same thing. So there you have it. The Oniwaban. Fact, they are not gardeners. That's rubbish. Fact, they were half samurai. Fact, they became Igamono, but were not from Iga. They were from Kishu. That's a fact, but it's a possibility that they were from Koka originally. But that is disappearing into the darkness of history, as there's only traces left of the idea of that. So it's not been confirmed. And then they moved from Kishu to Tokyo, which was Edo at the time, and they went around and made sure all the inner palace was secure, and they went off on secret missions to Osaka, and they were disbanded in 1868, I think they were disbanded, and with the fall of the government. And they were no more, and that was that. That was done. So guys, that's all in Samurai and Ninja. This book is out on pre-order on Amazon, and it will be out very, very soon, so it's more than likely out when you're watching this. It's got lots of stuff like this in, dispelling all the myths we've got. I have no idea why these myths pop up, like just randomly. Guards of the garden become gardeners in English. No, it doesn't. There's nothing like that. If you know anybody who's interested in the Oniwaban, pass this on. Subscribe here, and I hope to talk to you guys later. Don't forget, leave some comments below. Tell me what you think. Have you ever seen it in a documentary where they talk about the gardeners? Probably. Have you ever read it in any books, and which books did you read it in? Right, see you later.